Okay, we'll see if this worked. Oh, I must have gotten it to work if you're here. I have it on ultra low latency, but the ultra low latency really isn't that low of a latency. Let me tell you what. So I guess while I'm waiting for people to show up, I guess apparently I'm going to start working for the congregation as a secretary. So that's interesting and fun news. We'll see if anybody else shows up. If it's just you, I'll just be like, just come over and I'll judge people to your face. My computer's already muted. Where would I find the webcam audio at all? I'm in XSplit, Jetty. I couldn't get it to work through YouTube. Yeah, Lily, Nikki's trying to help me fix it. But I have no clue how to turn off my webcam audio. Okay, I'm in settings. And it already says that I'm using the Yeti. Okay. Okay, I'm on that, and I don't see any for... Oh, let's see if this worked. Did that work? Oh, let's see if this worked. Did that work? Do we have no echo now? Are we good? Do we have no echo now? Are we good? Something again? Do we have no echo now? Are we good? Something again? Okay. Something again? Well, it's turned off. Okay. Something again? Well, it's turned off. Okay. Well, it's turned off. Already did that. Already did that. Already did that. Already did that. I don't know if it's just that I'm in the dining room. Yeah, I do have a YouTube tab open because it's the only way I can see my chat. Yeah, I do have a YouTube tab open because it's the only way I can see my chat. Yeah, I do have a YouTube tab open because it's the only way I can see my chat. Okay, but if I close the tab, won't it take the chat away? Okay, but okay, I guess I will just not look at myself the entire time. Did that work, though? But did it work? That's what I'm interested in. Okay. I don't know why these things have such a hard time just having like one audio input. The first person to be judged is technology. You would think these very simple, straightforward, easy things to do. But no. You must pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for these programs that barely function, and you have to be happy with that because it's the only way to do it. And now in these beautiful times in our lives, it is expected of you to stream, to make use of the grand technology, as if you were sitting in somebody's living room. Sometimes I long for the days when you could simply send letters to and fro, and that was it. You could do that in your pajamas. Yeah, I have no idea if it's just you two. But which would be fine. So I am currently writing the Purim spiel for the congregation. And so it ought to be interesting. The worst part about volunteering myself to write the Purim spiel is having to hear people's commentary about my writing the Purim spiel. And I know in some sense they're trying to be interested or something like that. But I have essentially no, interest in, one of the guys at Temple, who is a really nice guy. He is intensely socially awkward, but he's a very nice guy. But today at the end of services, I stood up and I was like, hey everybody, I'm in charge of Purim this year. And by the way, this year it is Goy friendly. We are inviting the Goyim to Purim, assuming they don't get ideas from Haman and try to murder us. However, this year the congregation will not be providing alcohol, so it's a mixed bag. But anyway, I'm writing the Purim play, the Purim spiel, and so I stand up and announce, and I'm like, I'm gonna be sending out an email this week, saying, hey, here's the here's the roles that I have open, and here's what part they are. And, you know, you can take a look at all of this and see if you want to be in this. So, one gentleman who is very, very kind and very, very nice, like, afterwards was like, oh, he's like, is the any of the characters, are they, like, from Wizard of Oz? And I was like, sir, I know that you are trying to show interest, but no, the characters, I was not at all inspired by the Wizard of Oz to write the tale of, I don't even know what he was driving at, and I'm not sure he knew. I'm like, no. I'm like, just, very bizarre question, but then this other guy, who I often find bizarre, and who, like, really, I try to be, well, in full fairness to him, in a lot of big cities, a lot of the Purimspiels will have themes. Like, the theme will be Elvis, where everybody dresses up like a different Elvis, and the Purimspiel is just Elvises giving the Purimspiel. So perhaps that was what he was driving at, but I don't know exactly what about me would make you be like, clearly she's going to do a riff on the Wizard of Oz. I don't know if he was trying to make allusion to my being gay and a friend of Dorothy, but, very bizarre question. And then, as I am trying to get the stuff together for the Lunch and Learn, where we have a communal meal, because Jews are all about communal meals, he comes up to me and he's like, so how many roles do you have available and everything? And I'm like, off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be about between 5 or 7, depending on how many people, how many people are going to volunteer. Like, I want to have tiny children to play the soldiers that drag Haman away to his death. But if I have to have adults, then I will. I just really want small Jewish toddlers dragging a man away to his death. And the death of his entire family. But, so, I know, don't you want tiny Jewish toddlers dragging an anti-Semite to his death? I think that's what we deserve. Yeah, and I bet they would do it with amazing enthusiasm, and it's a role that required them to learn nothing. And if I had, like, 5 children that day, I would be like, congratulations, you've all been drafted. Upon my signal, drag this man away, and I will send the fleet of tiny Jews to get him, and it will be beautiful. But this guy comes up to me and he's like, okay, in what, and I don't know how to explain this unless you've known somebody like this, where they're trying to show interest, but the only way they know to show interest is to somehow, like, interrogatively ask close-ended questions. So he's like, okay, in how many languages? And I'm like, English. The play is in English. Which I was like, I don't know if you've heard me try to speak in Hebrew, but no, I did not write the play in Hebrew. I don't know if you've heard most of the congregation try to speak Hebrew. If it ain't a prayer, we don't know it, son. And so, I was like, okay, plays in English, and he's like, so what accents? And I'm like, what? I literally said not 15 minutes ago that I would be sending out an email that had the full description of each character and how I would prefer to have them played and all of this. Hold on to your ass. But I don't say this because this is a nice, incredibly awkward man. And I'm like, I'm going to send out the email on Monday or Tuesday, and that'll have the full description of every single character. And so, and then as we're sitting down, and he's sitting there, and I'm getting my lunch out and everything, he's like, is it going to be a musical? And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I don't know, and maybe this is my fault for writing the perm spiel myself, instead of just printing one off the internet like they have in years prior. But no, I did not write an entire score for the Purim spiel. So yeah, no, I have no idea, and he would not stop asking me questions. And I get the sense that this guy wants me to like him for reasons that I do not possibly understand. And I occasionally have this problem. I want everybody to hold on to their asses because I am going to sound like an asshole briefly. I have this problem sometimes where people want me to like them, but I am naturally sort of a held off person. I don't get super chummy the first time I meet someone. It's just not in my nature. Or not even, but like the first 18 times I meet someone. I hardly know this man. I don't understand why he cares about my opinion. We barely know each other. What I think of you, sir, is so irrelevant that I cannot believe that you would let it compose a moment of your thoughts. There are many people that I like quite a bit, but at the end of the day, their opinion of me really does not matter. Like, we have to work together. We have a very small congregation, and what I think about you doesn't matter, so I don't know why you're trying to impress me. So, I brought my lunch, and it was a bento all tied up in a furoshiki cloth and everything. And then he starts asking me about Japanese shit. He's like, have you ever been to a okonomiyaki omelet dinner or whatever, and I was like, no. I was like, I just review anime for a living, so I've seen a lot of these. And it was, the whole thing was like that. And he ended up sitting next to me during Lunch and Learn, where I expressed to the little high school girl who's having a problem with anti-Semitism in her high school that she should take on what I took on as a youth, which is a philosophy that I like to call, that's not only religious, but also moral, ethical. Talk shit, get hit. Yes, I didn't want to be in this conversation so bad, Lily. I was like, we're learning about historical anti-Semitism in the Cold War right now. Because Jews love to have light topics together for lunch over. So, we're all sitting there. And so, yes, I felt bad because her grandma Lynn and her, the mom doesn't do Jewish things at all. So it's always Grandma Lynn and her granddaughter Summerlee, and Summerlee apparently has been having trouble with boys making anti-Semitic comments. And I opined that once I had this problem as well, and I solved this problem by beating the smallest one's ass. Which worked really effectively. And little Elise turns to me and she goes, did you really do that? I'm like, yes, I really did that. I was like, solved my problem. And because they left me alone after that. And I'm like, they ain't making Jews like Jesus anymore. And little Aaron over there starts cracking up. And Lynn's like, well, I've been telling, that doesn't really work. And I'm like, work for me. Once people figure out that they cannot fuck with you because you are crazy, everything gets a lot easier. I grabbed that motherfucker who made an oven comment one too many times. By the way, uncreative anti-Semitism as well. I have heard every derivation of the oven joke that you could hope to hear. Please, if you are going to make an anti-Semitic jibe at me, at least come up with something where I'm like, that is clever. I have never heard this before. So I did what any red-blooded American would do, grabbed him by the sleeve, grabbed his backpack, and flung his face first into a locker, flung it twice, because he didn't even know what the fuck was happening at that point, threw him to the ground, and kicked him in the side repeatedly. Let me tell you, that was better than any kind of sensitivity training that a teacher could have given. Talk shit, get hit is the greatest thing you can teach a child. The more you know. It's true. I kind of wish I didn't like cooking at all because I have the greatest joke for it that simultaneously is hilarious and makes people uncomfortable, and I've given it to many of my Jewish friends who don't cook, which is to say that as a Jew, I naturally fear and abhor the oven. But of course, for me, I guess I could say, as a Jew, naturally I feel most comfortable inside of an oven. But... yeah, sometimes violence is the answer. Or at least it's a strong, supporting phrase. So, yeah, and anyway, so I'm writing the perm spiel, and I really need old men who are trying to be nice to stop talking to me about it like I care to have this level of small talk about, like, I'll send the script out. You can read it, and you can answer all of these questions for yourself. And one of them I'm really afraid is going to want to be in it. And you know how you can tell certain people have a flair for the theatrical? Like last year when I was Haman, I don't know if you all remember the picture when I was like sexy evil Haman. Right after that, Ed, the president, was like, would you like to run Purim next year? And I was like, would I? For I have a theatrical bent. I will be playing King Xerxes, who is the king that disposes of his wife because Queen Vashti refuses to just show herself off for his friends when they're having drinks one night. And Ed, our giant, wonderful president, is going to play Queen Esther. The only thing that would make me not play Xerxes would be if I can't find anybody to play the narrator. The narrator has far and away the most lines to learn, and many of those are like scene change mini monologues, because I'm me literally all the time, and I consider the narrator to be an important part of how a story is told and a character in their own right. And so, yeah, if it comes back and people are like, I do not want to try to learn that many lines, I'm like, it's just the kind of shit I say all the time, so I will be the narrator. Literally, the narrator is just me. If I posted bits from this Purim spiel and the narrator sings, they'd be like, Jesus Christ, Holligay, you are always on your shit at all times. I have a whole bit in the beginning about how, as storytellers, we are not concerned with the facts of what happened in Persia in this time. We are concerned with the truth of the matter, and the truth of the matter is this. And so, yeah, exactly. Like, Ren and Laura will also be here, and I'm sure that all of my goyim are going to be sitting in the back row, rolling their eyes like you wouldn't believe. Going, holy shit, is this a holiday joint? So, next year, I told Eric, well, this year I just wrote the story in a way that I thought was funny and engaging. Next year, if they're going to have me back, I am going to make an Old West version of this story. And we will have a Western, which involves, like, Haman and Mordecai having a shootout or something. I'm very invested in this. I know Eric would like to have me back because Eric has always wanted to have somebody who takes Purim very seriously. And so, and I take Purim extremely seriously. So I have been wrangled more than once into helping basically cater the Passover dinner. And if I'm doing all of Purim, I'm not doing that this year. I want you to imagine 4 Jewish women, each of which who think that the way that they cook is the right, true, and correct way to cook. Trying to make a dinner for the entire congregation. All of us sure that we are doing the best job. I get along great with those women the rest of the year. Some of them are my absolute favorite people there. But that one day in that tiny kitchen, we are all enemies. We are not friends. We, like, ended up, like, drawing for who made what, and I was, like, everything I could do to not be like, Karen, and her name really is Karen, your brisket was tacky and tasteless. Because it was dry. And like, Karen is one of my favorite people there. But it's just, I just need to step away from the Passover table, I think. I like having my own Passover table where things are done my way all the time. But it must be something like being in a restaurant. But, like, imagine that you have, like, 4 head chefs. And, nobody is in clear command because no one on earth is stupid enough to get in the middle of the 4 of us and say, okay, you are the head chef for this Passover, because no one wants to die. There's something else I was going to rant and rave about before I started my actual thing. Oh, yes. I was rereading today. No, they do. Yeah, exactly. The Jews would all just kill each other if we all had to share a kitchen and make Passover dinner. Don't let the Nazis know that this is how it's done. I was rereading some old Dear Prudence. So Dear Prudence has been 4 different women over the course, or 4 different people, over the course of existence. During my lifetime of reading it, it's been 2. Emily Yoffe, who is the old Dear Prudence to me, and Danny Lavery, who is the new Dear Prudence, and has been the new Dear Prudence for, I think, the last 2 or 3 years. No, they don't change their name to Prudence. That's just the byline. The original Dear Prudence was not named Prudence. So, yeah, I have forgotten how much I loved Emily Yoffe, and I remember how much Danny Lavery annoys me from time to time. Danny Lavery is younger than me, and I feel like he has no real world experience. Like, he went to an expensive literary college, and, he's a great author. I've quite liked a lot of the things I've read of his, but that does not an advice columnist make. But yeah, so a lot of times his advice will just be like this fucking puff piece, whatever. And I didn't realize how much I missed Emily Yoffe's Dear Prudence until I was rereading some old ones today. And I was like, God, thank you. Like, she was so pragmatic. And she would be like, well, this isn't ideal, but I can see from your letter you have no intention of leaving this man. And so I'm not going to waste the energy telling you to leave this man. Here are the other things that you can do. Things like that. Where, this fucking 28-year-old, this is Danny Lavery's, second job in life. So, it's just unimpressive to me. And I don't think I'm old enough to run an advice column. Like, when people ask my advice on stuff, I'm like, what the shit? I'm a child. I know nothing. I do get smarter every year I get older, which is why I don't worry about getting older. By the time I'm 40, I may be, have a fully formed frontal lobe and be able to think of things logically. But yeah, Danny Lavery. I was like, what the fuck? But it was something that I had managed to forget. Because, of course, humanity can get used to anything, including having an infant child try to give advice. There was one that really, really pissed me off the other day, to the point where I actually wrote an email to Danny Lavery going, I've never written an email to an advice columnist in my life. And yet, I was so struck by the intense wrongness of your answer that here I sit, not proud of myself, writing an email to tell you how wrong you are. Yes, we elected an infant child for president. We have an infant child giving advice. There is absolutely no good left in this world. So the point, the base of the letter is, this person, I presume it was a woman, but now I can't remember. This person's fiance is white. This Midwestern flavor of white, or whatever you want to say. And the letter writer is white and Chinese. And so her mom is Chinese, And so they went back to her house for something, for a party or something. And her Chinese mother went to all this great trouble to make all these different Chinese dishes, and made some American Chinese dishes because her fiance is, as she put it, not an adventurous eater. And I said to myself, upon reading the letter, Madam, you are Chinese. And if you are marrying somebody who describes himself as not an adventurous eater, this is going to come up again and again and again. I know, I came over to the house after, because when I get up in the morning, I read the news and I read my advice columns. So I come over to the house, guns blazing, throwing open the door. And I'm like, you won't believe what I read in Dear Prudence today! Because that is basically poor Jenny's life. So this feast is laid out before her, and she said that her fiance had, at some of the odder dishes, which I imagine are congee, not even anything super, super out there, would be my guess. And her fiance apparently had a look of disgust on her face the entire time. Wouldn't try any of the more outre things. Any of that. Super hurt her mother's feelings. And so the letters writer's I'm worried about this because I really want to share my, I really want to share my heritage with my future child and all of this. And I'm like, oh, ho, ho. My darling, my dear, you should not be entertaining the idea of having children with this person. Because they do not respect your heritage. And so, anyway, comes to the end, she said, I already told my fiance how I felt and how it hurt my mom's feelings, that she looked that way throughout the entire meal, and she denies, that she looked anyway, that you could tell how gross everything was. In those words, said how gross everything was. And so, Danny says, what you need to say is, you may not have been able to, you may not be able to tell that you were doing it, but you were making faces through the whole meal, and it really hurt me and my mother, and I need you to apologize. Great, whatever. That is not the overarching problem here. The overarching problem is that your fiancé is not an adventurous eater in the way that many white Americans are not adventurous eaters. That is to say, with a terribly racist note about it. And will not eat weird things simply because they haven't eaten them before. And those weird things often come from people who are not white. And so, you need to drop this bitch yesterday. Lily, I am an incredibly adventurous eater, but if I were not an adventurous eater, I probably would not consider myself decent fodder to be marrying or dating a non-white person. So, if you are not an adventurous eater, you should probably marry another Midwestern white fuck. Instead of being racist as shit when somebody's mother makes you a huge feast, including dishes that she would not normally make, but knows that pasty white mayonnaise cracker bitches like to eat. And I say all of this as, I guess I'm Jew, so I'm spicy white, but I'm still very white. And, when I went, but the same thing happened to me with my friends, Jill's friends, not my friends. White asterisk. When we went out to dim sum and Jen went to all this trouble to take us to an actual Chinese place and everything, nobody would fucking try anything. And I was embarrassed for all of them. I wouldn't have taken these people though. So, luckily I was there. I told Jen the things that I had that I had liked before, and I was looking for her recommendations and everything, because the menu's all in Chinese. And so I'm like, I don't eat pork. I'm like, but I'm down to clown with pretty much anything else. And I said, I do want to order chicken feet. They have 3 sauces on here. Which one do you think would be the best? And she said, do you like chicken feet? I said, I love chicken feet. And I said, as long as they're well done, because they have to be well done. And she said, I've never met a white person that likes chicken feet. I'm like, well, some of us are open to experience. Chicken feet are great as long as the sauce is good, which is why I was like, they have 3 sauces on here and I need you to tell me which is the best one. And she got the, but like, we got them, and Jill tried them, and she's like, you know what, they're not my favorite, but they're totally fine. And there were tons of people, and Jill is not what I would consider an adventurous eater. She's not the one who, like, flips the table and goes, I will have the tart of cow's tongues. Like, that's me. And, so, yeah. It was the amount of, like, just fried pork that we had sitting on the table with nothing to it was intensely embarrassing to me. But I did have an amazing sesame ball, and I love few things like I love an amazing sesame ball. So, and I also got to have some really good congee with that 1,000-year duck egg, which I loved. That was so good. I literally, like, Jen and I spent a couple hours trying to figure out how I could get those 1,000-year eggs back to Montana, and we could not make it work. So it was disappointing, but what did you mean to tell me? Yes. Oh, cool. I'll come with you next time we go. I really wanted to go. I was just so behind the 8 ball that I had to send you. Okay, now we will actually start on the actual events of this evening. I hope you've enjoyed my half-hour rant, catching you up with what I've been doing lately. So first I have one Yuri actual advice question, which I'm very helpful with on this particular one. Tips on how to find alternatives to Amazon. I have recently realized how thoroughly they've permeated the market when I asked 4 different people about where to find X, and they all said Amazon Prime shipping. Fuck those people. I have a blazing, unremarkably wild ass hatred of Amazon. I think that they are one of the spokes in the wheel that is ruining this country. And all the convenience in the world cannot get away from that. So it depends on what you're looking, but the real answer is it depends on what you're looking for. In the last year, I have had to resort to Amazon probably 5 times. So it's completely possible. For my crafting stuff, I use Joann's and Michael's. For my paper, I get from Paper Source. Trying to think of other things. Like, what are you looking for specifically? I use eBay for a ton because I don't really buy a lot of new clothes. Yeah, my pens are from the Goulet Pen Company. My nice pens, my small but burgeoning collection of fountain pens. Beauty supplies. Beauty supplies you can get most places. You can order them from CVS. You can order them from Sephora. Depending on what you're looking for specifically within a beauty supply. eBay, if you, like me, use a lot of Korean beauty products. Pretty much all of my skincare stuff is Korean in nature. Yeah, that has never happened to me. If it happened to me, I would read them for filth on the review. Yeah, I have never had that happen to me. Office supplies I usually get from Office Depot. If I have a place in town that also has an online component, a lot of times I will do buy online, pick up in store. Curly hair care products. Sephora has some. I'm sure drugstore.com has some. I'm sure that Ulta has some. What I would do is I would just Google the thing that you are looking for, and then it'll usually bring up a lot of different options. Sometimes you'll have to pay a little bit more, but I can sleep at night. So, that's what I do. Usually what I do when I'm looking for something is sometimes I'll go to Amazon to see what my options are, and then I will go elsewhere. I have heard, and I don't have, I've heard that there's apps that you can go on an Amazon page and it will show you where else you can buy it. But I've never used one of those myself, so I don't know how usable that is. But yeah, it's curly hair beauty supplies should be easy to find in other places. And there are actually a lot of websites that are specifically geared toward curly hair and how to take care of it and all of that. Obviously, this is not a thing that I know a ton about, other than knowing that it exists, because my hair is as straight as I am not. So not a problem I deal with in the specific. But really, a lot of times when people just go to Amazon because it's easy. They go to Amazon, they don't even try to look somewhere else. So far, I don't think, like I said, the only things that I've gotten nabbed on are really few and far between. And sometimes I'll just decide if Amazon is the only place I can get it, I don't actually need the thing. Which is fine. I mean, I buy a lot of stupid shit, like all fine red-blooded Americans. So, sometimes it just is easier for me to go, I don't need that. If Amazon is the only place that I can get it, I don't need that. I know that everybody has to live their own life and make compromises with their own morality. But people who order a bunch from Amazon, I feel really judgmental about. Literally every time my mom gets a package from Amazon, we get into a fight about it. My dad was going to get me an Amazon gift card for Hanukkah, and my mom was like, don't do that. Because what I would do with it, if I got it, is I would go find the heaviest thing that I could buy on Amazon with my $50 gift card, so that I could cost them the most amount of money to ship it to me. Like lead or something. I wouldn't even need the item. I'm just being petty at this point. But it would not be a delightful gift. I would have been like, seriously? Yeah, I would have bought cinder blocks from Bob's Cinder Block Emporium. But a lot of times Amazon is not the cheapest game in town. It's been seriously easy for me to find stuff cheaper elsewhere. And cheaper isn't always my only consideration. Like I said, a lot of times I prefer to buy things that have physical stores in my community so that people in my community can get work. And that to me means more than me getting something for $2 less. So, when I do the Michaels buy online, pick up in store, it's usually ready in an hour. That is the most Prime shipping. Yeah. And I don't have to really, all I have to do is walk into the store, I walk up to the front and grab it. It's super easy. When I go to Michael's, that never happens. I literally always walk through the store, I'm like, what else do I need? But hypothetically, one would not have to. One could just walk in and walk out without purchasing anything else. A lot of places will have free ship to store too. So if you're like, well, I don't want to pay shipping fees. Okay, cool. By the way, when you pay your Amazon Prime, you are paying for shipping. Yeah, it's just a mindset shift. It's just thinking for 5 seconds about how can I doing this small thing Is it going to fix everything? Is it going to make Amazon a reasonable company? Is it going to stop them being these giant octopus arms of hatred? Maybe not. But at least I can feel like when they were coming, I tried to do a little bit about it, instead of just being like, well, guess I'll die. So, yeah, it's just about making choices. Like so many things in life, it's just about making choices. So now I have characters to judge, and to judge harshly. Kayla asked for specifically Mamoru from the manga. And I'm not certain why we're picking on Mamoru from the manga, in that I feel bad picking on what is essentially a cardboard construction of a man. In fairness, he does do better than literally any of the senshi, as far as getting to do things. The only other senshi who gets to do things is, of course, Haruka. And the only reason Haruka gets to do things is because she is supposed to be the romantic rival. Don't think that I don't notice that she never wears feminine clothes before she and Usagi have worked out their little tryst or what have you. And that she only ever wears feminine clothes after. Because you see, if the whole point is not to trick a teenager into thinking that you're a boy, you would never wear pants. But yes, Mamoru from the manga. I don't find him any more odious, perhaps, than Mamoru from the anime, and I will at least give him the very, very, very light prop of being roughly in the age barrier of Usagi Tsukino. But my larger question for manga Mamoru is the whole Chibiusa situation, and I'm not going to pretend for even 5 seconds that this doesn't come out in the anime. But in fairness, I've never heard anybody defend anime Mamoru with saying that Chibiusa is a woman, and it's natural that Usagi would be jealous of her. So I don't know what exactly it is that manga Mamoru inspires in people, that allows for this sort of silliness to go on, but it certainly does. I would also like to read him for filth, for taking up pages and pages and pages of just he and Usagi yelling each other's names over and over again. It very much reminds me of when I watched Fushigi Yugi, and those two idiots whose names I feel like Tamagotchi and whoever the other one was, saying each other's names over and over again through the veil mirror situation. Utterly ridiculous. Why we spent so much time doing that, why Mamoru felt that it was so important to allow us to remember that he does in fact know Usagi's name, I am not certain. I feel that manga Mamoru could be improved on greatly by being absent and kidnapped more, despite the fact that he was absent and kidnapped often. Stars is a brilliant episode for many reasons, but the most reason that it is brilliant is the fact that it killed Mamoru so early, and then we never had to deal with him. We just had to deal with the fact that Usagi gave a shit, and that was very, very unfortunate. Yeah, Mamoru is... I don't know particularly how they thought that made him interesting, because Usagi did not need to have not but amnesia about her past in order to be the reincarnated Moon Princess, so perhaps this is just another example of the moon making everyone miserable so that Usagi seems great. Mamoru in the manga, why are we here? Why is he here? Although I suppose it could be argued that the only people that belong in the manga are Usagi and Mamoru. So yeah, I don't know. It's always so confusing to me. And again, I think that people should they just want us to assume that there are interesting things about Mamoru, but he forgot them. They are not that interesting. He's just a standard issue anime orphan. I don't know what is happening in Tokyo, but entire couples are dying left and right. And the children, there is no apparently social services situation in Japan. People just, they're like, oh, you don't have parents anymore. here you go, here's a sandwich. But that seems to be what they're doing in Tokyo. So I don't know how we're supposed to assume that there is anything interesting about Mamoru. Any interesting thing I've ever seen about him has been constructed by others, like not in canon at all. But yeah, everything about him is absolutely milquetoast and bland and colorless. The only valid Mamoru who absolutely should exist is I Do Justice Mamoru. Yeah, standard issue anime orphan. And you tease and you joke, but the more anime you watch, the more you're like, what is happening in Tokyo? Why is everyone an orphan? Somebody's car is having serious distress issues out there, and I can hear it. Mamoru in a pink apron. So good, so valid. Yeah, if Jill and I die and our child is left orphaned and you don't describe them as a standard issue anime orphan, I will in fact haunt you forever. It sounds like they got it started, but it doesn't sound healthy. Alright, who do we have next? I'll wait till Geeky gets back for that one. Cass asked for Jack Dawson, dramatic butch lesbian. Oh, Jack. Oh, Jack. It is hard for me to be a little hard on Jack, if only because I know that it is necessary that he die in order for Rose to become a full human, and that is valid and good. But if you think about it, Jack Dawson considers himself a lucky, lucky man. Not only does he consider himself a lucky man, but he considers himself a lucky man to the last, as he is freezing to death in the middle of the Titanic waters, saying that he would never take back knowing Rose for anything. Sir, you have known her for 3 days. And while I understand that this is a very standard butch lesbian way to feel about things, I may reiterate, you have known her for 3 days. And if the ship had pulled into harbor with everybody alive, the odds on her taking off with you would have been very small indeed. She may have later pulled a Susanna and put a bullet through her temple, but I don't know that she would have had the wherewithal to leave everything behind. And this is not a read on Rose. I think anybody raised in that sort of environment, faced with the opportunity to continue in the life to which they have become accustomed, I think any of us would struggle to leave that. However rich and beautiful we believe our inner selves to be, we are often not as strong as we believe ourselves. It's like how people always think that they can live outside of history. They're like, oh, if I was back there, I would have raised a fuss. Or, no, you wouldn't. Don't lie to yourself. People claiming that they would have fought the Nazis back in Munich, when they can't fucking call their senator because they have phone anxiety. I don't know how people end up so deluded about their own personal, abilities, but they certainly do. And it is always impressive to me that people can be so self-deluded, which leads me into a bit of a tangent about another beautiful butch lesbian. One time Jill and I were talking about this sort of thing, and she got desperately upset. She got desperately upset because she realized in that moment, if she had been in Germany in these times of trouble, she absolutely would have worked for the Nazi Party to protect her family, to do all of these things, and she absolutely would have done the wrong thing because she would have thought it was the safe thing to do. And I was like, you and everybody else, babe, I'm not really that upset about it. She got intensely upset about it. I have not brought it up again because I'm not sure I can deal with that sort of emotional breakdown all over again over who we might have been historically. But I think about it often because it was this dawning realization that the idea of who she wishes she would have been and who she probably would have actually been were completely in conflict with each other. And I think anybody who studies history enough deals with this already. We know that human beings don't easily live outside of their time. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. That is the way that things move forward. But people don't easily live outside of their own time. And most of us would do exactly what we're doing now. The level of resistance you're putting up now is the level of resistance you would have put up then. And perhaps this is displeasing to you, and I shouldn't be such a downer. But it's true. Yeah. Well, but people just want to believe that they're better people than they are. But the best indication of what you would have done is what things that you do. And so, when people tell me that they would have helped with the Underground Railroad, but they can't stop buying from Amazon, you'll have to forgive me if I have doubts. Back to Jack Dawson, a beautiful idiot. Not only, this whole thing starts because he bids everything he has against these Titanic tickets. Because he wants to go back to Wisconsin. I don't know if you've ever been to Wisconsin. And actually, when he speaks of Wisconsin, one of the fondest memories he seems to have is nearly freezing to death in the water. Now, of course, we would call this foreshadowing. But also, when he thinks of Wisconsin, he thinks of nearly freezing to death, and he longs to return to it. I cannot possibly imagine. He's lived in Paris. He's lived all over Europe. And this is a brisk time to be in Europe. This is before everything goes to shit. Everything is fairly decent in Europe at this time, although rapidly beginning to crumble. And his thoughts are, no, Wisconsin. That is where I'm going to return to. To do what, Jack? To do what? You really think that your drawings of French whores are going to fetch you a lot of money with the aw shucks crowd? It's a bunch of farmers out there. I have no idea where he was going with this idea. And then he decides, you know what? Life isn't hard enough. There are apparently no women available here in the third-class steerage that would be similar to my own station. No. I will go for that one, who looks tortured and terrible. This is a wonderful idea. And that's how you know that Jack Dawson is not a man, but in fact a butch lesbian. Because he goes, he sees a girl, she looks hot and deeply, deeply disturbed. That's the one that I want. I'll show her what love is like. And he accepts all of this with open arms. Jack Dawson, such a fool. And we are lucky that he is such a fool, because if he were not such a fool, we would not have the glorious story of Titanic. Which reminds me, I don't know if I ever told all of you this. I feel like I must have, but my wife found and eagerly read a Supergirl Titanic AU where both of the lovers survive, and the writer said that, right up front. She's like, Titanic AU, where they all live! And she told me this, and I know my wife. I love my wife. I understand my wife completely. There are certain things that she will not read and will not touch. She's fine with reading some of the fluffy stuff, but she doesn't want anything that even touches on any of the angst. She'll read a lot of my fluffy Farrah Mercy stuff. It wasn't nobody. It was just none of the characters that you don't care about. Yeah, and, that was what I said. I was like, why would you write a Titanic AU where nobody dies? I'm like, one of them has to die. That is the entire point of Titanic. One of them dies, the other one learns a valuable lesson. It's a class romance, where you can just believe that it was the most beautiful thing in the world and you never have to think about it ever again, because if they both survive, then that story becomes, it is Carnival Cruise AU. That is amazing, and the next time we talk about this, I am going to call it that. Because when she told me, I could not believe it. I'm like, of course you would read that kind of trash. I would in absolutely no way read that. It's not even that it's too transformative. I am into, as we've seen with my own fanfiction, I am into absolutely, fuck canon, whatever. But I'm telling you that if I get into a Titanic story and there's no glorious angsty ending, I'm gonna be pissed. So at least I'll give them the credit of saying, they're up front, they're all going to live. And I can just be like, okay, this story is not for me. Sort of reading my wife for filth also. Geeky, I saw that you came back. Geeky said every victim from every slasher horror movie ever made. It's always the Judge Jillian hour. Yeah. I know that to a certain extent, like, we are all always slaves to the narrative. There are things that characters do because characters have to do them. It's what moves the ball forward. And in no place is this more evident than in horror movies, because no victim in a horror movie, and actually many of the people who survive the horror movie, ever acts in a reasonable fashion throughout the entire movie. Now, in fairness, sometimes during, like, a haunting movie, not a slasher movie, but a haunting movie, I get it. Because they move into these beautiful palatial places with, like, old wood and all of this. And yes, a ghost would have to near about kill me to get me out of it as well. I would be splashing holy water. I would be calling an exorcist from literally every religion. You would have to fucking fight me. But the slasher movies, I'm like, how attached are you to this abandoned barn house in the middle of nowhere? If nothing else, like, head for the woods. It's very difficult to find people in the woods, even if they are a murderous killer. They're like checking out the basement and everything, instead of just leaving. And very often they'll hear, like, did you hear that there's, like, an escaped convict out here who likes to chop people up? Oh, look, here's an entire basement full of machetes, but I'm sure that won't be a problem. I just can't understand how these people reach these moments in their lives where everything that they've ever learned in their life goes out the window. And I know people with really, really, really poor, self-discipline isn't the word I'm looking for. Perception. People who are not terribly perceptive. And yet, I still think that if they went and, saw, machete murder on the loose, abandoned farmhouse, basement full of machetes, they would be like, oh, okay, perhaps it's time to leave. Instead of sitting inside the house for a while and waiting until their, belt is cut in the car. I don't understand how these people have lived up to this point to get murdered by a slasher. I watch very few slasher movies because they do annoy me on so many different levels. And they don't give me any level of pleasure. I like a good ghost story. I like a bad ghost story. I like the whole genre. But the slasher film has really never captured me in any way. Even the biggies, like Friday the 13th et al., I just never could get into them. Partially because I think so much of it is that manufactured acting like a complete dickwad all the time. And also, what are teenagers up to these days? That they're going out and getting murdered in abandoned farmhouses. Like, how do you reach this point in your life where you're having sex with your girlfriend and because you're sexually active, you must die? I didn't know that slashers were a form of STD, but I think that clearly we can agree that that is all very true. Yeah, and that's the thing. I understand the appeal to people. Like, I understand how one could like a slasher film. Much like I don't blame people who are like, why do you like stupid ghost movies? I just do, man. Like, I just like the idea of a disembodied threat that... And a good ghost story, of course, can represent something completely different. It can be about something else. But I understand the appeal. But they just don't appeal to me personally. Have you ever heard of or seen Geeky, where I think that, and you probably know more about this than me, so I'm probably completely doing it wrong, but apparently there's like a Camp Crystal Lake where you can actually be like in a slasher movie. Like, they have it as an experience. I would consider doing that. It's so strange because I don't like being surprised and I don't like being jumped out at. and all of that, but I still would do something like that. I don't know. I just like the idea of really intense situations, because I think that when things are hard is when we find our mettle. Speaking of, would anybody mind if I took a trip down a side trail in order to talk about what happened with dessert last night? I supposedly have a punch first gut response, but what it really is, and I mean this with all love, I'm also coming for me and also coming for Jetty when I say this. When most people say I don't go to haunted houses because I'm a punch first person, what they mean is they absolutely terrify me and I want no part of it. And that's me too. I don't go to them because I don't like them. And even if I didn't punch somebody, I just don't, I don't enjoy being jumped out at. I have, in my old age, I have stopped trying to justify it with, a reason where I'm just too tough to go to one. And been like, no, I don't, I've hit plenty of people in my life, Kiki, so, I've been in enough haunted houses that I'm sure I could manage to not punch someone, but I just don't like them. I happen to know that you're a scaredy cat, Jetwolf. So, remember when we were in the bottom of the, that museum in Seattle that I like so much? I think anybody who's watched you play a horror game can tell you that you're a scaredy cat. I'm fine with that. So am I. I just embrace the fear. Yeah, the nervous giggles. You should have seen her. We were in this. It was a thing about like horror movies and stuff, and it was really good about that pressing tension. You should have seen Jetty. There were many parts where she was like, I don't like this. This is not okay. I get scared by that shit too. I don't see well in the dark. I don't like being jumped out at. All of that. I don't know if tension is better than jump scares. I think that often jump scares are poorly executed. And so, but like the jump scare, there are really good jump scares in this world. It often reminds me, talking about this reminds me of when Jetty and I were talking about roller coasters. And she's like, I just don't like them. And I was like, oh, your entire life people have bought that? You're like, I'm just not scared. I'm not scared of them. I just don't like them. Okay. That sounds plausible. If you just don't like them, then you can endure it for me. My dad is one of those people. He's like, I just don't like horror movies. I just don't like them. And in my old age, I have little tolerance for, I'm not scared. It's fine to be scared. Sometimes it's incredibly reasonable to be scared. I have a tendency sometimes to, particularly when I was younger, I was really bad at being afraid. I don't know how else to, I don't know, I'll explain because I'm not saying it well, but, part of who I am as a person is that my brain doesn't always, like, think things through all the way to the conclusion. So, like, when I was 16 or whatever, I would be running around in the middle of the night wearing a mini skirt and a crop top down and around bars and everything in dark alleyways by myself and all these things, and I wasn't scared. I wasn't on alert. I wasn't on edge. I wasn't scared at all. That was a fear that I had to teach myself. I don't know why people act weird about being scared by things that are supposed to scare you at all, Geeky. Like, I would go. I really do want to go to like one of those horror haunted houses that are really, really super intense. Like the ones where they separate you and it's like you're in a horror movie. There was this one in New York that I was reading about that was really interesting. Where you like you go in and you're immediately separated from whoever you came in with, and like you end up being chased down a hallway, and at some point you have to like dig keys out of a toilet and run into the other room, and there's a woman like chained to the floor screaming that he's coming, and you have to figure out what key it is and get her out. Like, that sounds crazily intense to me. And really good. And the thing that I really like about it is, yeah, it sounds terrifying, but like I have this real thing with life on the edge. Like, I know it would scare me, but I really like really intense experiences. I like being scared. And so what it is I like proving myself against something. And so, but also on that one, like when you go in, you give them a safe word. And if you say your safe word, it's over. Like they turn on the lights, the actors immediately stop acting, they lead you out through the back. They're like, you're fine, you're good. Would you like a cookie and some juice? You did great. Thank you, come again. So it's not like McCavey Manor, for example, which I don't know how much, I'm like weirdly obsessed with it because it rides such a weird line for me. Like, I like I'm a crazy person. I'm completely willing, will judge me here too. I'm a crazy person and I completely can cop to that. But, the idea of being low-key tortured to see how much I could take is appealing to me. But I don't know that I would want that guy to be the one to do it because he seems like he's the kind of guy that sets up a torture house. Like, you know, I watched a whole thing on him, and I was like, no, you scare the shit out of me. There's something about how much you enjoy doing this that really, like, sets me off in a weird way. And I'm absolutely one of those, like, Outlast people. If I were going to do something like McCavey, doing it a bit too much for his own pleasure, it's super, he makes me feel weird. In a way that watching other extreme haunted houses never has. You know, yeah, I think it's just, he moved out to the middle of nowhere so we have a facility to do all his weird, like, torture shit. And it's just too weird for me. If I were going to do something like McCavey Manor, I would want to do it with a friend because I think I would do better. Not because my friend would be helpful, but because I would have to outlast them. And so I would perform better, knowing that I had to be the tougher one. Because sometimes all I can be is myself. I completely forgot about dessert, which is going to become a theme. So I was going to make these cakelets. Like, I kind of mixed together a brownie and a cake recipe because I wanted them to be brownie-like, but I wanted them to be a little heavy, like lighter, have a little more heft to them. And then they were going to have a band of this cheese frosting that was mixed with blueberry and vanilla. And then on the top, it was going to have a ganache with a sea salt garnish. Great, cool, wonderful. I am in a really good mood on Shabbat day, and I'm bouncing around the kitchen and whatever, and put the brownies in, put them in for the right time, and I open it, and they're like oily, and they're like there's puddles in them, and it takes me a while, and I figure out I forgot to add the cocoa powder and the flour. I added essentially none of the dry ingredients. So I have a minor panic. I'm like, okay, fuck. And I'm like, I don't have time to remake them because I don't have time to remake these. And Jetty's like, no, you can remake them because, you know, this and I'm like, you don't know how to fix this. Please just let me think about this. And so what I did was I tossed a bunch of the cocoa powder in it, mixed it up, and then tossed it back in there because the flour was gone. Our eggs were used and baked, and there's no way they were going to be able to incorporate the flour. So I was like, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. So I put the cocoa powder in, I tossed it back in for another half hour so it can dry out some more. Then after they got done, I put it outside to let it cool while I was making everything else. And then, thought about it for a little bit, made my cheese frosting as usual, brought it back in. So it's crumbly, like, they're not completely dry. They're still pretty wet. So I started thinking about, have you guys ever had those, like, truffles? The refrigerator truffles? They're made with, like, crushed up cookie and cream cheese and stuff. So I was thinking about that. And I was like, okay, I can make something similar to that is a more upscale version of that. So, I grab a handful of this stuff and I mix all of it with the cream cheese frosting. And then I roll them into balls, and because they're so filled with like butter and cheese, they like basically like made themselves into cow patties, which is fine. And I put them on a rack, and I put the rack back outside to try and let it chill. Once it chilled, I brought them back in, and I put the ganache on top of it, and then sprinkled it with the sea salt. I told my family, I was like, because like if this had been a dinner party, I wouldn't have told anybody that I fucked up. I would have just served this and called it like a truffelette or something, and made up all this horseshit. But because I was just with the fam, I completely told them what happened. And I was like, if this tastes like shit, I'm sorry. I'm like, I did the only thing I could think of to save it. And it actually turned out really good. It was rich as hell. I wish I had made them smaller, because we could barely get through them. I made Jill take the rest of them to work. But they were actually really good. I was really proud of myself. I was like, well, that was a disaster that ended up being turned into a dessert, and I'm proud of me. That's it. That's the story. Lily asked for Catra from She-Ra. What isn't there to judge about Catra? I am somewhat shocked that so many people like her. Which I don't mean that in a way that, like, people who like Catra are hashtag problematic or bad or whatever. I don't actually care. But it does surprise me because she's so overtly terrible and manipulative, and in a way that is really a lot like a real person. And I think that because a lot of times I like the terrible character. The terrible character is where I live. But there's something about the way that she's terrible that is so real. She is absolutely caught up in her own victimhood. Everything has happened to Catra, and Catra has not caused anything to happen. No part of her own life is ever due to her own choices. And she can't be made happy. She keeps getting what she wants, and getting what she wants, and it's never enough. Will never, ever make her happy. I don't think she can be made happy. And she's mean, like truly and really mean to people that are trying to help her. And that are supportive of her. You know, she's even nasty to Adora when the two of them are together. And she's flat out mean to Scorpia, which, by the way, is a reason that you two hate anybody. How anybody could be mean to Scorpia is absolutely fucking beyond me. And it just sends me. But she's so overtly a person who makes her own problems. and then refuses to accept any of her part of in them. I get it. Your childhood sucked. I'm sorry. That's true for a lot of us. But she's so caught up in this thing about Adora did this and Adora did that because she was the favorite. And yeah, she was the favorite, and that sucks. But she also actually really did her work while you were fucking off. And once Catra is promoted and everything, she can't let go of any of these things. She cherishes and nurtures her hurts like they're her fucking dragon horde. It's the only thing that she allows herself to keep or have is reasons to be angry at everybody. She can let go of every good thing that's ever happened to her, but she can't let go of any of the bad things that have happened to her. And I think we all know somebody like her who is so determined to be miserable and so caught up in their own misery that they're just horrible to be around. And I just don't understand how absolutely anybody on Earth can possibly deal with her. Not to mention, sometimes just the raw incompetence. And I know this is a children's show, and so raw incompetence is par for the course. But sometimes it just staggers me, of course Hordak is getting annoyed with you. You're doing a bad job. And I'm not saying Hordak is doing a good job, but it's not like you are a lauded Nobel Prize winner and you are getting unfairly slighted. You somehow failed your way to the top, Catra. She's terrible. I kind of hope that they don't give her a redemption arc. I hope that she just stays terrible and that she never fucking learns her lesson. And I don't think that's likely to happen. I think that she probably will get a redemption arc. But a lot of times people like Catra don't change. And so I think that can be a valuable lesson for children too. Is sometimes toxic people just need to be dumped. Sometimes they don't learn anything. And all you can do is leave them. And I really, really, truly hope that they, Okay, Sam, I made you a moderator. I didn't realize you weren't a moderator. So you should be able to post as much as you want. Yeah, I don't understand. I don't get any level of excuse for Catra. She has spit on every excuse that anybody would extend to her. Or any kind of friendship, any kind of anything. It's all just part of Catra's plan to get back at Adora for the slight of being the better liked child. It's very, very, it's too realistic. I think that's why that's the hard thing is you meet people like this all the time who just get wrapped up in this idea of I'm the victim here, I'm the one who life has happened to, all of this, you should feel sorry for me, and I just don't. At a certain point, you just have to, let it go. That's what, I know a lot of Tumblr rejects this idea, and I get it. I don't fully embrace it myself, because nothing in life is easy. But the idea that forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you, it comes out of this kind of shit. Because, if she could let go of the whole, not even forgive, just let the fuck go of the whole Shadow Weaver growing up thing, her life would be so much better. If she could just be like, I'm done, I am done spending time on this. Sometimes that's all you can do. Is just be like, you know what? The idea of closure is false. It is a lie. There is no such thing as closure. So sometimes it's better to be like, okay, so what would I do if this person was dead? And I'm going to act that way. And so for that, you have to be able to be like, okay, I am done spending mental bandwidth on the fact that this happened to me. We are now putting this in the feelings box. We are throwing the feelings box in the pit. And we are not thinking about this anymore. The only thing that can come out of keeping a tally of all the bad things that happen to you, and what are you gonna do? Look at your list and remind yourself why you should be miserable? Like, what the fuck way is that to live? There are so many interesting and cool things happening in this world, and you're like, yeah, well, when I was 5, someone said something that hurt my feelings. Like, and whenever I say stuff like this, and I feel like the audience here knows me well enough to know this isn't true, but whenever I say shit like this, invariably, somebody comes up with, spoken like somebody who's never had actual trauma, like, you don't know shit, and I don't owe you shit, by the way. Like, you don't need to get a report card yeah, but look how that worked out for the Count of Monte Cristo. It didn't. Intricate revenge scheme ends terribly. It doesn't work. It just, at a certain point, you just gotta, like, let it go. For yourself, if nothing else. Some things there's just no point in thinking about, particularly if you don't have to and you don't ever have to build a relationship with anybody, by the way. Yeah, that is my experience of reading The Count of Monte Cristo. Even though I love it, it's a great buckled swash. Lots of fun. But the entire time I'm reading it, I'm like, Edmund, let it go. Fuck. Jesus, God. Like, you're spending so much time on this guy that you supposedly hate. Get a life. I may not be the target audience for these sort of stories. Because all I can think of is, I'm like, get a life, God. Why hold a grudge? So next, we have, this is such a lowball that I almost didn't do it. But I absolutely love ragging on this point. Yeah. I have such rich compassion, and to defend myself a little bit, I do have compassion. I just am not the person who is going to sit there and tell you, no, you're so right, I understand, oh, yeah, it sounds so rough. I'm glad you're emotionally processing this with me. That is not me, no. I am not that friend. I can't be that friend for you. What I can do is get you drunk and tell you to pull your head out of your ass and tell you what you can do going forward. I have said things like, you're so right. When you say things like, Haruka was clearly born into a poor family and Michiru was clearly born into a rich family. And I've said things like, I understand, when you're like, oh my god, I hate the manga. So don't say that I don't ever say those phrases. It's just that when you're like, I feel emotionally slighted by the fact that Bang energy drinks are made by a giant Trump supporter, and so I can't have them anymore, and this hurts me emotionally. And so on and so forth. Man, that Taco Bell was a blow, though. Or at least it was for me. And I love when somebody, like, went back and researched them. I think finding out that Bang energy drinks was made by a major Trump supporter is probably the most tragic thing that has happened to you in the last year. Or at least in the top 10. I know discovering that Taco Bell was the same. The totally unfortunate thing about that is somebody went back, like, through the companies of that post and, like, debunked some of it and said, like Snopes went through the whole thing, was like true, partial truth, false, all these different things. The only true that were completely just all green, Snopes green, all true, were Bang energy drinks and Taco Bell. The two things that I love, Jetty loves Bang energy drinks. I love Taco Bell. I haven't had Taco Bell in so long, basically since discovering that. and it is the saddest shit in my life. You're like, oh, why don't you go to a real taqueria and get real tacos? If I wanted real tacos, I would eat real tacos. We have pretty good Mexican food here because we have a huge Mexican population. I can get good tacos if I want them, but sometimes one does not want a good taco that tastes like actual food and is made of dead animals. Sometimes you want to eat Taco Bell because you want hot trash in your mouth. And so I mourn its loss intimately. I did finally delete all of the, delivery apps on my phone because I feel like they were not leading me to good places. Man was not meant to have Taco Bell available for delivery at 10 o'clock at night. So I finally had to let that go. And I didn't do it super often. But I did it often enough. Anyway, on to the other thing that Lily said. Queen Serenity from the original Moon Kingdom. Oh my god, do I hate Queen Serenity. I hate the whole Moon royal family. Like, if we're all being completely honest here. I have hated the Royal Moon family for years. I never bought any of the... For starters, like, even in the manga and the anime, we have a really, like, nebulous idea of what the fuck they are doing. Or, like, did. So, you know, it's never... That's why you'll see so many different hot takes on the Silmill. And I know some people, because I have literally seen people complain about me, I know some people hate my Silmill dystopia shit. But I can't understand why, under God, you would think you're like, oh, she's just so neat that we should promise our princess to her to protect her daughter. How does that work in your mind? Like, I desperately need to know. How you're like, oh no, we love her so much that we will give one of our royal daughters, in order that they may serve her as soldiers. Please point out to me the historic precedent for this. I would be fucking fascinated to read it. Queen Serenity was a complete bitch. And don't get me wrong, like, Princess Serenity basically was fine with destroying her family's legacy, to fuck a guy from the Earth, and it was never really made clear to me how exactly that led to the destruction of the moon. It's sort of hand waved. They're like, oh, the Earth people were angry. And I'm like, I feel like the Earth people really didn't care that much about two teenagers banging. So I feel like other things must have been going on there. Because I cannot imagine Joe Earth, giving a single solitary shit, who in the fuck Princess Serenity was fucking. Or their own prince. Over the course of history, you will find that very often in these feudalist society things that I think the Moon Kingdom is trying to evoke, I don't know that Takeuchi knows what she's trying to evoke here. Yeah, you don't jump from peaceful subject to rebellion and murder based on fucking. Like, it just does not happen. There had to be some kind of civil unrest, and I think the suggestion is made in canon that fucking Queen Serenity had the entire fucking solar system under her goddamn heel. I think the Moon Kingdom was a military kingdom. I think that they must have fucking just absolutely ran rampant through anyone. And it brings into call so many fucking questions, up to and including, so like, Sailor Saturn, right, can destroy the world with a drop of her glaive, which, by the way, seems like a terrible, like, I can't imagine that she served in the Moon Kingdom, which is why I don't have her serve in the Moon Kingdom, but, like, how do you come up with that? And assuming that we take the anime at its, face, and she's like, oh, yeah, we're gonna reincarnate all of these people except Saturn, but she's gonna end up reincarnated anyway. So not only was she a military-ass bitch, but she was incompetent as fuck! if fucking Sailor Saturn was never meant to come back, did she just, like, lose Sailor Saturn's soul? And, like, oh, fuck, I guess it's on Earth now. Oh, well, I guess that's a problem for future Earth. Die. Like, I can't believe... Also, her last act was to reincarnate her fucking daughter and her daughter's fucking boyfriend, who led to this entire fucking nonsense? Like, I don't understand this. Why would you be like, you're right, baby Serenity, and whose name I never managed to learn? I will reincarnate you and your boyfriend in several thousand years on Earth. It'll be great. You'll have another go at it. The fuck? No, I cannot imagine that happening. The gross incompetence and idiocy involved. I have to feel like she just, like, shot out power and was like, well, let the chips fall where they may. It's just so blazingly stupid to me, the whole steel mill thing. Like, as constructed in the canon bits we have. Yeah, and you can't make sense of it. You are going to go into your overly complicated headcanon, and I am going to fight you at every turn. Because you cannot logic your way into this, because it makes no fucking sense. At a certain point, you're just going to have to say, it's bad writing. And there's no headcanon that can get out of this. Any headcanon that could get you out of this is basically just writing. It's so unbelievably stupid that they expect us to believe all of this at once. That the moon and the earth were never supposed to be together, and that's the whole reason the Moon Kingdom fell. But for some reason, Queen Serenity was like, no, but young love, my kingdom is collapsing. I'm about to be murdered, but young love. And if so, she is stupid enough that I am supportive of her Moon Kingdom falling. I mean, I think the bitch had it coming in any case. But, and also apparently Pluto just sat there and watched it happen. She's like, can't leave the time gate, even though later I'm gonna leave the time gate all the time. Bye! Let's not even get started on Pluto's taboos. And how they basically don't exist. It's literally like, the taboo is literally like me telling Hot Pocket that he can't get up on the counter. Like, all that's going to happen is she's going to get tossed off the counter. Nothing bad is going to happen. There are absolutely no rules here, and it infuriates me. Queen Serenity somehow managed to have the entire fucking... Again, she also failed upwards. She managed to have the entire fucking solar system under her heel while being so stupid incompetent that she can't even make rules for her own subjects. Doc vs. Jet is actually the subtitle of the podcast. Sometimes we agree. We often agree, I would actually put forth. It's just in certain details where we differ, or where she is willing to bring the strings together like that fucking crazy person in the meme and be like, no, this is how Hillary can still win. Oh, thank you, Geeky. Yeah, Queen Serenity. I don't know. But it's good to see that, like, literally Usagi continues in the grand tradition of not bothering to learn her children's names. And so just giving her her own children's name. So, like, you have Usagi and then Chibiusa and then Kosagi, which, as I understand it, is like Usagi the Third. Oh, I'm so glad that you like listening to the podcast. Episode 5 with the Chanella just came out. Very exciting. Yeah, Kasagi is such a what the fuck moment. I remember when I read that, like, somebody told me that and I legit thought they were trolling me. And I was like, ho ho ho, we have fun. And they're like, no, that's real. Usagi, little Usagi, and baby Usagi. Like, fuck fuck me. Like, buy this bitch a goddamn baby name book. I've literally put more thought and care into naming side characters in my fanfic by going to baby name generator and clicking Japanese random. Like, and they even have a thing where you can mark it for gender. So, you know, you can just click in there. Usagi, you could have a new baby name in like 2 seconds. I also admit I am very suspicious of Crystal Tokyo as well. Because I am incredibly suspicious of the idea of a one world government. Where everything is peaceful and everyone is happy. Because that definitely sounds like some fucking propaganda shit. So... I like how you don't even bother with, real names. Yeah, the Black Moon Clan. If Usagi is doing such a great job that everybody loves her so much, and she's the greatest queen of all time, and we totally love that she's running the entire planet, why would the Black Moon Clan exist? Maybe, and this is just me spitballing, maybe a one world government with the entire world crushed under its heel is a bad idea. And I know, like, people get real spicy at me when I write that kind of, which is why I don't write it very much anymore, but, when I write that kind of thing about Crystal Tokyo, and about how, like, the Senshi are basically, like, running what were some of, like, the continents, and, you know, like, now all official documents are in Japanese, and everybody has to learn Japanese because Usagi doesn't want to learn anything different. You know, all of these things that they're like, well, that wouldn't happen. I'm like, wouldn't it though? I can easily see her making Japanese the global language, and the real simple alphabet is she'd be like, let's dispense with these fancy alphabets. The simple alphabet is what we use now. All hail Usagi. Or Neo Queen Serenity. If you will. And also, my child is locked as a child for 900 years, and, like, nobody seems to be overly concerned about that. Also, we all stopped aging at 21 because now Takeuchi is deeply afraid of aging. But now this is more of a read on the beginning and ending of Takeuchi's story at large. I am glad that I don't think does the anime really fuck with Crystal Tokyo? I think that they mostly ignore it in my memory. Yeah, the anime looked at all of that shit and was like, little weird. Maybe not gonna engage with that. Thank you. Cause it is weird. It is weird. Like, you read that and you're like, what the fuck? Like, I don't think I could have read that. I don't think I could have read the manga at, like, 15 when I was really getting into S and all that. And, like, done this with a straight face. Even then, I would have been like, they stop aging at 21? Are you crazy? I mean, maybe I got lucky because my mom never really, like, instilled in me this idea that being young is the most important thing that a woman can be. But I still can't believe, like, it's just so fucked up and weird. Like, why? I don't know. I think that this weird, like, immortality thing, it's fucking stupid. I hope the Black Moon Clan succeeds. And I hope they kill every single fucking one of them. The Tsukinos are like the Skywalkers of this universe. All they do is fuck everything up. The world would be better to be rid of them. Okay, so now I have 2 Sailor Moon characters, which I saved for last. Sam nominated Utena, but because Jetty is here, I am not going to judge Utena. Also, like you said, it's almost too easy. She's another example of fucking failing to the top. No, you don't have to leave. If we have time at the end, Jetty. But we're getting close to time anyway. Michiru, there are so many things to judge about Michiru. And I love each and every one of them. And I cherish her terrible, snobby ass to the end of fucking time. I don't know how many of you are listening to the podcast and listen to the part where I talk about Michiru and we put the ooey music behind it, but that is literally how I feel at all times. She is, let us not forget this time, that she bullied a teenager at a public pool. And I want to point out that we come to find out that she has her own private pool that belongs only to her in her fancy ass penthouse apartment that she cannot bother to hang a fucking picture in, even though she herself is an artist. No, that will not do, because it's not that she was trying to practice her swimming, it's that Michiru Kaio specifically set out to bully a teenager at the local YMCA. She woke up that morning and she said, you know what I haven't done in a long time? Yell at a 15-year-old until they cry. She went down there with the idea that she was going to, in some way, shame a teenager. And Ami was perfect for this, because... and I will talk a ton about this when we do the episode, Ami's greatest sin is that instead of just winning, she pitied Michiru. She went easy on her. She acted like she was the kind of person who would need some fucking grace from Ami Mizuno's goddamn hands. And so she goes down there and races Ami and sees that Ami lets her tie. And this cannot fucking stand. So she berates her and tells her, you weren't actually trying, you little weak-ass bitch, until Ami runs away crying. And stupid, beautiful Haruka has the audacity, well, by the way, sitting fully clothed because she is going nowhere near the water because you know she swims like a brick. And says to say, that was mean. And later, her penance is that she has to go find Ami again, and put her little Japanese noom. And the funny thing is that the anime refuses to show this, because they're cowards. But if she was driving the motorcycle that slowly, she would have to basically walk it along. Like, she would have it on, and she would have to be straddling it the whole time like this, just walking along. And they don't show that because they are cowards. So she does this because Michiru is gonna be mad, and Michiru wants the opportunity to bully this teenager a second time. And drags her ass back to the YMCA, and so they can have another race. This one, Ami wins. And finally, and Michiru's like, I hope we've learned a valuable lesson today. And Ami says, I have learned a valuable lesson. I've learned that you're a bitch. And it's so beautiful. It's so great. Let's also talk about the moment that Michiru tells Rei to either shoot her or shoot the monster, but in any case, let us please move this along. Basically, she's standing there. Rei is like, wow, I'm afraid I'll shoot you because I don't know if you know this, but you're actually mostly covering the monster as it's holding you, so there's only really a few places that I can, so if you stand really still, and she basically says, well then, wouldn't it be excellent if you learned how to shoot? Shoot now, you little pussy, is basically how Michiru handles the situation, because she has at all times sensitivity and gentleness. Also, I know we all already know about this beautiful moment, but I love that she fully waits until the man is just about to pour her wine to tell him, no, thank you, I will not. Beautiful. And you know, she does half the shit she does as a power play. The whole thing with Seiya is a power play. The whole thing with fucking around with Haruka and Seiya is a power play. So many things that she does are power plays, and that is just a little tiny moment to show that it's in all aspects of her life. Michiru just likes everybody to know that she is head bitch in charge at all times, because she is terrible. She's one of those people who is so well trained in the arts of social conversation and everything that it's been honed into a weapon. She knows how to use people's sociability against them. And it's terrible, and I'm judging her, but also I aspire, and I love her so much. She's so terrible and beautiful, and she literally would destroy the world in order to save Haruka. Which, by the way, destroying the world wouldn't save Haruka. Haruka would die too, and she knows that. She just doesn't give a shit, because she has absolutely fuck all intention of staying in this world without Haruka. She proves that in 110, she proves that in 198, she proves this over and over again. She is simply not that invested in the dream. And that is why I love her, because she is the Senshi who goes, I don't really care about all of this. My girlfriend is here. Thank you. Good day. She does not wear the Senshi promotional button, because she just does not care. She is beautiful and wonderful, and she is deeply, deeply in need of therapy. The last character I have for this fine evening is Rei Hino. There are so many places to start with Rei. One of them is that she is a terrible and tasteless cheap ass. Rei is consumed with the idea not only of preserving money, but of great value. She is literally that person who cannot stop herself when you compliment something of hers, of saying, I only paid $2 for it. And unfortunately, in some ways, this leads her to terrible, terrible taste. So, like, her shitty here curry that she says is exactly as... It's not that she's like, no, I know it's not as good as the regular thing, but, you know, it's cheaper and I don't really care that much. She says, no, it's just as good. And does she believe that? Or has she convinced herself that it's true because she needs herself not only to be cheap, but to have appropriate taste at all times? To admit that the thing that she has selected is not actually that good, although it is cheap, would be some sort of actual concession. It would be Rei not being good at all things, at all times. And so she refuses. She simply says that here curry is absolutely delicious, and I wonder if she ever reflects on the fact that this leads people to believe that she must absolutely just have a trash palate. She's one of those people who buys the New Year's bags, and not because she particularly wants anything in them, but because she has been promised $100 of value for a $25 bag. And whether she wants the items in them or not is nearly irrelevant. What she wants to tell people is how little she paid for this object. The other thing is that Rei is an arrogant, vainglorious fool. Rei thinks that she is good at everything. Rei is not good at everything. She makes herself the arbiter of all fine fashions. Rei can be an idol if she wants to be. Rei can be a businesswoman if she wants to be. Doesn't matter. Rei can be heterosexual if she wants to be. It doesn't matter whether or not Rei is actually good at any of these things, because she will show you how she is the best at all these things, and you will tell her that she is the best at all of these things, because she does not have even a moment of social couth. She likes to... I think that Rei, in many ways, is Michiru in her own mind. She sees herself, I think, as above the other Senshi, and she is the beautiful and talented and elegant one. She is not Michiru. I think one of the greatest things that the show ever did was having the two of them together for that entire segment. Just imagining that the way that Ray must conceive of herself, I would love to live in her head for one day. I would love to see her internal monologues on what Ray Hino does every single day, and how it does not in any way line up with the reality of the situation. Ray buys her own hype more than anyone. She is her own hype man and her own audience, literally at all times. Nobody thinks Ray is as cool as Ray does. She is a stubborn ass of a woman, and I absolutely adore her. She is one of my favorites. But she is, in many ways, very terrible. And she also could probably use a little bit of therapy. So, that is the end of my judgment corner. I don't know if this was any fun or not. I just, as you know, I like to try new things all the time. Trying to do new fun stuff. If you have any ideas for segments or stuff like this, or stuff you want to hear me talk about for stuff like this, go ahead and let me know. If anybody has any final questions for me, coming up, Lily asked a really interesting question that I'm not going to answer here because I do want to answer it on the main blog. But Lily asked a question on my Carnival Live blog about how the Carnival take worked. Does everybody get a part of their ticket prices, or how does that work? So I will write up a post about how historically Carnival takes have worked in the past. I can't speak to how they work now, but I can speak to how they worked historically. So be looking forward to that. Tomorrow, Lily, I have been living for your comments on the Carnival Live blog. I absolutely love that you have enjoyed it. I love doing Carnival. I think it's such an interesting show. I am utterly annoyed with it that it has made me care so much about a man, which is terrible, but the show is worth watching anyway. I absolutely loved the last episode. I thought it was so good, despite not having enough Brother Justin in it. And I know they're meeting that out. They're trying to pad this out because they already know where they're going with him. And they don't want to reveal everything up front. And so that's why, if anybody's wondering why we're getting so little of him, it's because they're trying to slowly meet out what they're doing with him. So if you have, that's why they're doing that. But I loved the Jonesy content in the last episode. I thought it was incredible. It was everything that I wanted it to be. I screamed. Jetty had to be with me in the office when I was watching that. And it was a very difficult time for her, I'm sure. Tomorrow I have the Utena musical on the Patreon. So I hope you'll join me for that. I have a couple posts going up too. And then Monday is Ask and Writing Day. So, I love the Utena musical. I didn't think I was going to, but here we are, and I'm having an amazing time with it. And then Monday I have Asks. So if there's any questions you want me to ask, I do have a bunch of little Valentine's ficklets that I'll be working on. So that'll be fun. On the 11th, I have my last PGSM post. And I thought I had something else, but I can't find it now. I'm sure I do, but... and then Wednesday, I have Strange Empire. And then Thursday, we have our next PGSM stream. So I hope you will join me for all of that. As soon as I get off of here, I'm going to start making the survey for the cooking stream at the end of the month. The winner from the different cooking ideas was Holiday Cooking 101. And so I'm going to have you guys vote on the ingredient that we do. I think the ideas I've had are 101 olive oil, 101 rice, and 101 pasta, which are good base ingredients to get to know. Oh, thank you. I don't know if you saw the whole thing, but so yeah, I think those are the 3 ideas I had for really good base ingredients, really good simple things to put together with them. Familiarity with ingredients and how to shop for them and everything is a really important part of learning how to cook. Learning how to deal with one ingredient and to understand it is really where you start coming up with like cooking basics. You know, I could take you through a class in how to make a cake, but that won't really teach you how to understand different things about food. So I think this 101 thing, I'm going to really delve into an ingredient, really teach you to try to understand it. Simple recipes with the ingredient, they can help you understand the nature of the ingredient more so you can work with it more. I've also considered doing a 101 like herbs and explaining different herbs, but there are enough herbs that I don't know if I would have enough time to really get in depth with them enough to teach you anything valuable. So like, you know, what does sage go with and all of that. I'd have to break it down to a couple different, like we could do one that's an episode on dill, sage, and thyme, for example, or all of that. So I will be putting that up, and I hope you vote on that. I know, like Geeky, I know that you know how to cook well enough that they may not be super interesting for you, but maybe you'll learn something about shopping or something about like what you should be looking for when you go to buy these things. So hopefully it'll be interesting for all of you for other things. For olive oil, I have the recipes I think are a really simple vinaigrette. So basically, I can teach you how to make a vinaigrette with anything, and you can infuse all kinds of different flavors into it. Really simple salad dressing. And then a really simple linguine with olive oil pasta dish. And then, the third one's an olive oil cake. It's an olive oil cake. All things that really bring out the flavor of the olive oil. So you can taste different olive oils, you can see what you like, you can see what you don't like. And you can see the benefit of using good olive oil. The rice recipes are simple long grain rice, like just cooking a simple long grain rice. Because some people say that they really struggle with cooking rice. We'll also be making, if we do rice, we'll also be making onigiri, which is a really good, simple lunch to pack. And then we'll also be doing risotto, so those are all 3 things that I think really bring out the quality of the rice in and of themselves. Pasta, I can't remember what I landed on. I had a really hard time picking 3 things that I really thought brought out the pasta element of it. I've got it written down upstairs. So when I post, I will be like, and here's the recipes that we would be making. So vote for the one that you would most like to see and that you think you would benefit the most from. And that's what I'll be doing at the end of the month. So, does anybody have any final questions for me? I actually think the rice one is going to get voted in because I'm making onigiri. I mean, I know that sounds like cynical of me, but that was my immediate thought. Is I was like, well, I'm gonna teach people how to make the weeb thing, so I think that's going to get voted in. So I'm glad that you're excited for it. Onigiri are super easy to make too. I don't know why people don't do it. Weeb shit or onigiri? If I get to the budget cooking thing, if that, like that, I think that placed third, or maybe it was fourth. It was in that realm. Sam, I am calling you out, Sam. I love you, but it's true. I'm calling all of you out. Much like the haunted house, say whatever you want. I know you're a bunch of fucking weebs. It's fine. We're all friends here. Onigiri are actually one of the recipes that I'll use for lunches if I get to do the budget cooking thing, where a family of 4 lasts on $116.25, I think it is, for a week. Because they're a really easy and delectable way to get a good lunch out. So, so be looking forward to that. If you haven't voted, I'm not sure if voting is closed or not, but if you haven't voted for the soup recipes that all y'all will be getting this month, let me know. Last I saw, the ones that were winning were chili and ravioli soup. There's 2 days left. So if you want to go vote, the choices are loaded cauliflower soup, chili, ravioli soup, and then a garlic and chicken soup. So go ahead and vote, and then I will post for you those 2 recipes, and hopefully you will find them pleasing. So if nobody has anything else, Jetty does love that loaded cauliflower. If nobody has anything else, then I will sign off for the evening, and probably go lay in bed and read my book, because I'm a really interesting person. I haven't made my tomato soup in a long time. I need to do that. Sometimes I'll make it with a grilled cheese crouton, which is just like basically what you do is you take like day-old bread, and then you put just a little bit of a really thin spread of Velveeta in it, and then you basically make little mini grilled cheese sandwiches, and butter fry them, and then you just put a couple on top. So it's like having a quarter. It's like you get less of a sandwich with a little bit of a nice crisper outside, but still get that sort of flavor. But I haven't made that in a long time, so I should do that. So thank you all for joining me. I love goat cheese, so you would find no argument from me. I have had a wonderful time. I hope you also have had a wonderful time. So I will see all of you beautiful humans soon.